Morag is the founder of Roaring Hope. Morag also works for Christian Vision. Yeah. Morag is unique in the fact that she is an inventor. She is so switched on and clever. And we will forgive her because she's a Kiwi. Okay. But she's come across the ditch, to a place where God has brought her for a very specific time and for a wonderful reason as she reaches out. But I'll let her explain all of that. So, big warm welcome to Morag today.
Thank you, Carol. Now, Carol was amazing. She is the prayer coordinator for Roaring Hope and has been doing an amazing job over this last 2 years, even maybe a little bit longer than 2 years. But I always think that it's good to know where someone's come from and to give a little bit of context of where I've come from. And I didn't come to the Sunshine Coast by choice. I actually came because I felt like God told me that this is where I was meant to be. Now, what happened was I grew up in New Zealand, as you know from Carol. I got involved in a large evangelistic outreach called Impact World Tour. Now, I got involved through my church, and the person that told me about Impact World Tour in the very first place said to me, "Don't get too involved because I'll get you." And anyway, they got me, or God got me. So I was in this large event, and that's when God spoke to me and said that I was to leave my home and my country and to go. And I went into Youth with a Mission, and I went over to Perth, and I was there for 10 years. Now, I was involved in reaching out to people across different countries. So I would go into a country for a period of a year, and then get involved with those local churches and have all these teams, hundreds of people coming into the city and sharing about Jesus, working alongside these churches. Now, I was very much focused on Youth with a Mission. I was full in my focus, and I knew, in fact it still makes me want to cry, that I was meant to be there. And I actually said that it was the most exciting job in the world. No sooner had I said that God started changing the plan. And I came back from Kolkata. It was my last trip that I had been in. And I came back to Perth, and I started to get sick. And my boss said to me at the time, "Why don't you go? In fact, you're going to leave on Friday." He basically told me that I had a week to prepare, and I was to go away for a month. And the first thing I thought of, well, I'll give my sister a call and find out if I could come and see her in the Sunshine Coast. Or actually, I originally rang my brother to see if I could see him in Melbourne. Now, it turned out that through circumstances, I got to see both my sister in the Sunshine Coast and my brother in Melbourne. I ended up here on the Sunshine Coast, and on the first in fact, I think it was the first day, I asked God, should I still be in Waiwe? And it still makes me cry. And he said, "It's finished." And I cried myself to sleep that night. And I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? Now, the following day, I went to my sister and found out that her husband was working at this organisation called Christian Vision. And I said, well, what do they do there anyway? Now, my whole idea of looking at what my sister's husband was doing was so that I could advance talking about Jesus with people. I would teach on evangelism all the time. So I would teach on evangelism at the Youth with a Mission. So in my mind, even though God said it's finished, I was still thinking, well, this is what I know. Now, I obviously wanted to hear from God as well and have that confirmed. When I looked on the website, there was my job. And I ended up in that job, and I'm still in that job today. And that is reaching out across the internet to see people come to know Jesus. Now, I was specifically involved in that work across Australia and New Zealand. And I did a few different things, but one of the things we wanted to do was reach people directly with the gospel. So that was putting up advertising on social media, and then when people would respond to that, well, initially, this is the thing, people were responding, but no one was answering them. And this one day, this was across Australia and New Zealand where I was working, one day I basically got given this Facebook page and said, Morag, do something with it. So we were initially doing just videos so that it was introducing people to Jesus. That was our mandate, introduce people to Jesus so they could become his true followers. And then we had these ads and there were people commenting on these ads. And as I looked at the whole platform, I then started to go, well, we'll start responding to people. So these ads, people would come in and they'd ask questions. Now this one day I was scrolling through my Facebook and I saw that someone had responded to a comment that someone had made on the video, on the page that I was looking at, totally unrelated. It was on a mattress advertising, so a bed company advertising about their mattresses. And it said page responded to privately, and I was like, oh, is that possible? So I came into work the next day and said, can we reply to these people? And I looked and I could actually make comments on the page and bring these people into private messages. Now, I think it was the 14th of April 2016, there was this man that asked a question on a comment, and I said to him something along the lines of, something about him connecting with God, or have you made a decision to connect with God? And he said, no, how do I do that? So I then said, have a chat to us privately, and in half an hour with me talking to him, I had led him to Jesus in the same way that I would if I was speaking to someone face to face in the street. And that then started this passion within me to build something. And I got asked, Morag, if you could do anything with this page, what would you do? So I said, well, I would get people working 24/7 answering these questions. And I was given a budget, so I was allowed to get 5 people, and they would work 4-hour shifts every day, and we would have them working for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I didn't get my 24 hours, but I got 16 hours. And we saw over 20 weeks, 100 people come to know Jesus, and 100 people connected into church. In fact, I think it was 105 people, and then 100 people connected into church. Now, this was going amazing, but in 2019, so just on COVID, I got told that we were no longer going to be reaching out in the same way across Australia and New Zealand, and that we wanted to focus at work on the unreached people groups. Now the cool thing is, I've actually been able to take exactly what I've learned from this time and move that over to all the unreached people groups that we're working with. Now, part of what I did though was I actually wrote a bot, and it's a chat bot. It's a little bit like AI, but it's a very simple AI. So it takes people through a little journey and a pathway so that they can discover Jesus for themselves without having to have a human, because I found out that humans are a bit slow in responding, and when we've got lots of messages coming in, we can't possibly talk in the same kind of depth as what most people would want the conversation to be. And the chatbot also reduces out some of the noise, I guess, the people that really aren't interested.
Can you expand on the chatbot? A lot of people, and AI wouldn't know what that is.
Yeah. So it's like it's a program that I have, and I have written in text, so it's text format. So when someone clicks on a button in social media, they click the Learn More button or the Send Message button, it will automatically bring up a message that says, "Hi Carol, would you like to know more about Jesus?" for example. My chatbot actually asks, have you ever considered knowing Jesus could change your life? And then they have 3 options to say yes, maybe, or no. And then they go on a little self-directed journey, and that chatbot keeps talking to you. So you just keep clicking the buttons and it will keep directing you through. And at a certain point, you can ask to talk to a human. So does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not someone talking on a phone, it's someone on their social media platform, and it's just taking them into a private message. So I've been able to duplicate that chatbot, and that's now in about 17 or 18 countries that I work with still at Christian Vision, which is very exciting. So that's what I would call, that's what I do 4 days a week, right? But for the other day a week, I left one of those days at Christian Vision so that I could now focus on what has been created is the Roaring Hope not-for-profit. Now the way this happened is I had the platform across Australia and New Zealand, and I got asked, is there someone that you can give this to, when we decided to finish the work at Christian Vision. And as I rung up all the people that I knew that had got involved, every single one of them said, do you come with it? And I said, well, no. I hadn't actually thought of that. And I even rung up someone, and Kate down in Sydney, and I said, would you help to look after it? And she put this thought into my head this one day that maybe I should actually take it on myself. And as I started asking God about it, he actually said to me, it was one day at work, he said to me, do you want your baby? Now, who would give away their baby? I know I wouldn't. And it just got me. In fact, my eyes welled with tears. I still remember the place that I was standing, looking at myself in the mirror just after I'd washed my hands, after I'd been to the toilet. So it's in the bathroom. Many things happen in the bathroom, don't they? And and I said yes to God. And from there, I've created a not-for-profit. And that just means now that the whole work that was started with this Why God platform, so the platform itself is called Why God. That's the platform that all the people that would be asking questions about God come into. That is now under the ministry name or the not-for-profit name of Roaring Hope. So I have a website, we have a website called roaringhope.co, and that's the platform that we would have for all of you to have a look at, so that you can understand, you can read about stories, you can even be trained on how to share your faith through this platform, and you can find out how to get involved through prayer and through being on the response team, through finances, all that kind of thing. So that's the Roaring Hope platform. And then we have the Why God platform, plus a number of other platforms that we have, and that's where all the people that want to know about Jesus would go. That's where all the advertising is. So we advertise, we'll put either a video, or we'll put a little image, or we'll put some words that would help to encourage people to ask questions about Jesus. Now there are quite a few people, as you may know, that don't actually really appreciate talking about Jesus. And so we'll have a number of people that will start and they'll have a conversation with us, and they'll be quite angry. And those kind of conversations can turn into all sorts of things. And it's amazing when someone starts a conversation with an F off, if you can then respond to that person in a completely different manner, they will be like, why are you being so nice to me? So I do have some stories that I'll tell you about that, but I'll just share first of all what the vision and the mission is of Roaring Hope. So the vision is changing lives one conversation at a time. So it's those one individual conversations. We need to have people individually, one by one, being answered and being treated as an individual and as someone that not just gets a block of information but has something really personal to them and people responding. And then the mission is for us to be a known place across Australia and New Zealand where people, young adults specifically, can chat online 24/7 to discover hope and purpose. So the vision is that we would have people 24/7 speaking or chatting back and forth. And when I say chatting, this isn't with our mouth, this is with our fingers. You know the old saying, well, they had this in New Zealand with the phone books, let your fingers do the walking. Yeah? I don't know if that was in Australia, but we let our fingers do our talking by typing our responses. Something that God has spoken to me as part of the whole ministry of Roaring Hope is to have a certain number of response volunteers. Now, you'll see this picture here, it's my show and tell. I think people were wondering what on earth I was coming in with a little picture. But a number of years ago, I saw this in the shop. In fact, I'll bring it over. I saw this in the shop, and I thought, how exciting to see all these faces, amazing amount of faces. Now, has anyone tried to count these faces, just as a matter of interest? Anyone want to have a little guess how many faces there are?
900.
900. Stephen's got 900. Any other takers? 700. Yep, Dale said 700. Any other? We'll go with Dale. There's actually 625. So initially, what I felt like I wanted to buy this painting or this image so that I could write down the names of the people that were getting saved, because I was seeing lots of people come to know Jesus. And there was something in me, I just couldn't start writing the names underneath the faces. So I was just going to get a marker pen and then just start putting the names underneath. But I don't know, I just stopped. And I had a bit of change in my house, and I took this picture down from the wall and had it in my bedroom briefly. And there was one day I was having a quiet time, and God said to me, they're not the number of people I want to see saved, that's the number of your response team that I want you to trust me for. So to have 24/7 response, we need to have this many people actually responding, I believe. And to have 24/7 response, we also need 24/7 prayer. And you'll notice all around the edge of this painting is a whole heap of faces. And I think it's nearly, I have counted it once, and I think we did actually get to the right number, but 24/7 prayer is 168 people covering 1 hour of prayer dedicated for a week. So each week, if there's 168 people praying at a certain time, we will have 24/7 prayer covering. And there's a reason why they're all around the response team, because that's what's needed, is all around the response team. And of course, praying for the people as well that continue to come in to the platform. So stories are always exciting, aren't they? And we've got loads of them. And I just want to give you a few that come to mind. And of course, I've had lots of years to be able to do this. So we've been going as Roaring Hope, we've been developing Roaring Hope over this past few years. And it's taken us a little while to get started with actually responding and being able to put out ads. But our ads started this year, and we've seen a number of people come to know Jesus. But I also have a number of stories that are legacy stories as well. And I think sometimes when you've got that time, you're able to see, you know, the difference that you make in people's lives. And there's one guy, his name was Ronnie, and he came in and talking to someone late at night, and he was suicidal. The person talking to him didn't necessarily know he was suicidal, but very quickly they actually led him in a prayer to give his life to Jesus. Now, it was soon after that, well, immediately at that point, she then gave him a church that he could go to, and he actually got himself along to this church, and it was in Auckland. Now, so that's New Zealand. So it's across Australia and New Zealand, of course. And then shortly, probably about 9 months later, he wrote in again and said, "Can you help me find a job?" So we prayed for a job for him, and then after that, he actually wrote in again to say, "I have got a job as an accountant at the Equippers Church in Auckland," and he was going along to that church. He got a job there, he went to a home group, and now he's leading a home group, and he's done missions and all sorts of things, and he's out sharing his faith. Now that's one person that's been impacted that has then gone on to impact others and others. Now, I told you about people that are a bit grumpy. There was one that was very, very grumpy. In fact, he was giving all sorts of scenarios about, would Jesus save me if there was someone coming into my house and doing, I won't even say what they were going to do, awful things to his family. And I said, oh goodness me, I hope that hasn't happened to you. But it hadn't happened to him, thankfully. But he was going all these different excuses. And I asked him a question. Now, I don't remember exactly what that question was. It was something along the lines of, what would you say to Jesus? And he told me in the end that he had been in a bath of hot scalding water with a bottle of whiskey and a knife to his wrists. And the only thing that stopped him was his daughters. And, you know, we're talking to people that are very angry at times, but there's a reason why they're angry. And, you know, he actually congratulated me and said, "You've got through to me." He still didn't want to know anything more about Jesus, but I actually got through to him, which is really exciting. I've got a few stories as well, just written down here, just so that I remember them. But there was a guy that wanted to find out, he actually wanted to find out more about God. And he said, "I'd like to go along to a church," and he just actually wrote out all these things that he wanted. And then it was like he talked himself out of it, and then said, "Oh, well, anyway, the church wouldn't accept me." Now, what I did is I actually got him into an Alpha group. And he went along to Alpha, and he said his first experience, honestly, was not very good. There was lots of people talking, and he said lots of people seemed to know a lot about God, and he couldn't even get his questions in. And someone had also mentioned about how there was something wrong with gay people. Now this guy, thankfully, the pastor came and talked to him afterwards, and he's like, "It was such a relief because I was able to ask all the questions I needed." Now this man confessed to me that he is in a gay lifestyle, and that pastor has continued to disciple him, and he's given his life to Jesus. How exciting is that? There was a girl swearing at the bot. It was really funny. You know, the bot talks, and then I can't believe how many people swear at the bot, back and forth and back and forth. Anyway, we decided to talk to her, and she ended up telling us that she's had a miracle child. She doesn't know why, because she got told she couldn't get pregnant. But she's got this baby, and she said, "Why would God give that to me? And do you think there is a purpose for my baby?" What an amazing question to ask, eh? And again, not everyone gives their life to Jesus, but it's a journey. And there's been many people that have come in and they've asked questions, and then honestly, 1 or 2 years later, they've come back and they've given their lives to Jesus. Not long after we started the Roaring Hope ministry and everything was handed over to me, there was a lot of problems that we had, and there was disconnection with the bot and all sorts of things that happened. I managed to get the bot reconnected this one night, about 20 minutes before a girl that had come in about 2 years prior went through the bot again and got saved. How amazing is that? God's timing is absolutely incredible. And there was one guy as well, and he actually had made a suicide plan. And he actually even showed me a suicide plan, and then he went silent. So I rang the police. And anyway, he had actually just gone away for dinner and come back, and that was the only reason why. Can you believe that? My husband hasn't turned his phone off. stage. Actually, I should say, this is another miracle that God did, is in the middle of me setting up Roaring Hope, God gave me a husband. Yeah. And I met my husband, Robin, through Alpha. I was leading an Alpha course, and Robin came along, and in the middle of, he was actually engaged to someone else. But a few years later, that stopped, and we realised we really liked each other, and now look at us. We're married. So isn't it amazing how God gives you the desires of your heart? But yeah, this guy that was suicidal, he'd gone away to have dinner, but he really was not in a good space. And he told me the police are knocking at my door. And I helped to just give him the confidence that he needed to listen to what the police were asking him to do and to go with them. And he wrote to me in the back of the ambulance saying, "Thank you so much for caring for me. I've never had anyone care like this for me before." And he got the help that he needed. So how could you be involved? Maybe you're sitting there thinking, oh, this is too big for me. I don't know whether I could be any part of this, but let me tell you, you can. Carol is on the prayer, like she's leading the prayer team, but she has also joined the response team. And I know that Carol, I hope I can say this, Carol, but you were feeling very nervous about that. She didn't want to be part of it, but she actually signed up as a practice so that we could make sure that everything was working. And I took her application seriously, and now she's on the team. It's a great way of getting her, isn't it? But she's doing an amazing job, and it's a great way of actually developing your own faith as well. So maybe you just think, well, maybe I could actually be part of that team. So don't discount what God is speaking to you. So just ask God. If you get a little prompt, ask God, should I be on the team? With this as well, we do need finances. And God's been amazing at providing so far with just prompting people to donate. But this is fully, it's not like we're getting money from anywhere. We're trusting God for the finances to come through. So whether you can give or whether you can pray for people to give, that is something that you could do. And then I believe that, and Carol has told me this on good authority, that you're all great at praying and that you all have the ability to ask God and to see things happen. And I believe the same thing. So if that's something that you could do, there is a little, I think Carol's already put them on the seat, but there's a little flyer on your seat. And if you think, oh, I can't do that with this barcode and stuff, don't let the QR code put you off. It's not COVID, but it's just, sometimes people are still so used to the QR code now that it's a good way of getting you on the system. But I can even help to sign you up to prayer today, or Carol could do that as well at any time. And we have a prayer calendar so that 24/7 we have someone covering our response team, and also, I guess, putting a net, what I would say a net, over all those people that have once spoken to us that we want to see come again. I just want to finish with some scripture here as well, because God's spoken to me so clearly over these past few months especially, and this is something that I'm putting in our Roaring Hope newsletter, which goes out today. So if you sign up in time, you'll be included in the newsletter as well. So life and death are in the power of the tongue, and that's Proverbs 18:21. And we can be speaking things into life, or our mouth can also speak death. And what we speak into life affects many, but what we speak in death also affects many. So death and life, this is the amplified version, are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it and indulge it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words. So could you be speaking life over the youth of Australia and New Zealand, to know that even though they may not seem interested at all, they might start off with an F off, that those people would be completely turned around and speak life over them, that they will know the truth and the hope and purpose that God has for them. And something as well that God's just spoken to me today is do not despise the small beginnings. And I think that's a word, I'm speaking it out as a faith step for me. Because really, it does feel like small beginnings. But I know also that God has promised, and He's spoken to me for this 625 volunteer responders to be on the team. And that will enable us to do 24/7 chat across Australia and New Zealand. So can you stand with me in our small beginnings? And can you pray with me as well that these 625 people will come? We've got 13. We've started. And we need the 625, and then also the support team to go along with that. Because as you can imagine, that's too many people for only a few people to look after. So thank you so much for this time today.
Thank you, Morag.
Thanks.